Hello, good evening and welcome to our webinar. Thank you so much for giving up some of your time to join us today. My name is Andy O'Sullivan and it's wonderful to have you with us. And already got some people joining in. Thank you for mentioning, hey, Gublin, I think it's France. Hello, welcome guys. Welcome to our webinar. Well, we're going to look at how to create an awesome club contest or area contest or whatever it is that you happen to be organising. So Nadia, welcome. Please put a chat in. Maybe tell us what club you're in, where you are. Well, we did this last week. Had people from New Zealand and Spain and Germany and all over the world. So it's wonderful to have when we get such a great Toastmasters community coming to join us. We've got Elizabeth from D71, our old friend in D71. Nadia from Common Garden Speakers in London, I know well. And it's great, isn't it, that the technology allows us to connect so easily, so well from wherever you happen to be. Who else have we got? Please put them in. Angela from Santander, Spain. Welcome, Angela. We've done these before. I used to do these as the actual live event in London where I'm based. And of course, it kind of limits us as to where we can have people join us from, even in the UK. From Geneva, Anja. I mean, there's Angela, welcome. Or Idika, is it, from HL Spain? We've got Sylvia from Canterbury here in the UK in D91. Welcome, Sylvia, as well. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking at how we can create and run, organise and have these amazing contests. Because when we do that, it makes it a successful evening for us, for the club, for the members, and of course, everybody who's put in all that work, you know, preparing their speeches, rehearsing them, whatever it is that they happen to be doing. Because we all obviously try to prepare to be the best. There's Jika from Gatwick Communicators, where we had our recent conference there. Gubin from D91 Windsor. Welcome, Gublin. I think I'm saying that right, although I struggles over the small time that I see on my screen. So welcome to you, and again, thank you very much for coming along today. So let me change over to the slides, and I'll show you exactly what we are going to be covering in our time here today. So let me just bring up the slides for us, and that will minimize me, you might be pleased to know. There we go. So that is what we're doing, how to organise the club contest. And the agenda we've got, we're going to look together at why do we have club contests. We're going to look at the purpose of the club contest together. We're also going to look at the different types of contests that we have throughout the Toastmasters year. And there are different ones, and actually depending on where you are in the world, of course, which ones you host and when. We're going to look at the roles, and there are many roles as Toastmasters we need to fill in the contest and have set up and briefed and all ready to go. We're also going to cover eligibility. Some people can compete, some can't, and it's important to know who they are. There's various forms that we need, and we want to make sure that those forms are there, they're on site, they're ready to go for our contest. And that's exactly what we are going to cover in this time together, and some sources of help as well. I've been a member of Toastmasters for 11 years, and over that time, I've organised many contests as an area director, division director, and in D91 here in the UK, I'm also the district chief judge. So kind of contests are really my thing, and I know a lot about them. And by going to contests, I've seen a lot of kind of common themes that run through where there are issues. And all too often, I go to club contests, area contests, even division contests. And even if I'm not in there in an official capacity, I have to interject to stop or say something where it's like seriously wrong. Not minorly wrong, seriously wrong. And by following what we cover here today, you won't be making those kind of errors. You're going to be making sure that you have amazing club contests. Now, you know where the chat box is, because we've been chatting on that already. You've been telling me where you are and what clubs you are. So I'd love you to tell me as well, why do we have club contests? What do you think are the reasons that we have them, that we organise them in our clubs, areas, divisions? Because, I mean, they take a lot of time. So there must be a great purpose to them. So what is the purpose of them? What do you think? I'd love you to put that in the chat box to tell me why. And then we look at why we think we have the contest. And we also see what is it that Toastmasters say as the official reasons for having club contests. What do you think are the reasons for them? Why do we do them? How do they add? How do they add to our club meetings when we have these contests? What do you think? That's what I'd love to know from you. And there should be a lot. We've got about 20 people on the call at the moment, and that's kind of going up a bit. So certainly should be a lot of chat come in. Sylvia says, helps members take their speaking to that next level. It certainly does, doesn't it? I think it does. Whenever you're focusing on something like a contest, it does help you to take them to that next level. What does everybody else think on the call? Let's wait till we get some more comments. I think so as well, because I know when I was competing, you really kind of focus on it a little bit more than if you're just doing something in your club. Elizabeth, challenging yourself. Absolutely, you do challenge yourself, Elizabeth. You're absolutely right when you're doing that. Jitka, to present the skills and ability to speak up, which we gain. Yeah, we do. Actually, you're showcasing them. Exactly. You're showing those skills that you have learned. Googling, to put in practice what we learn. Competing development. Absolutely. We are doing exactly that, Adam. So we need to challenge our skills. And we do. And I think that's a great thing with contests. We are kind of challenging ourselves when we do them, doing it in a differently kind of environment. Let's see what Toastmasters say as the reason. I think that's really what we've covered here. Competitive speaking, because we don't normally do competitive speaking, do we, in our clubs? We're all very friendly, we're supportive, we're encouraging. So this may be the time that we're a little bit more competitive because we want to win. And that's something to get the opportunity to practice that level. And it does make it a little bit more interesting, doesn't it? It's something different that we do a couple of times a year to make it different, to make it a little bit more interesting. And it's for the members as well as our guests who come along. I know in many of the contests I've done at club level, guests join and become members because they see that and they think how great the standard is, the level, and they're so impressed. They want to join. They want to see some of that. So it helps to do that. And the third one is the opportunity of learning. Now, when I joined Toastmasters, soon after I joined, in fact, I went to an area contest. And by going to that area contest, totally changed the way that I did speeches. I think up to that point, I'd always been the more boring lecturer that I spent most of my life at that point seeing. And I didn't realize you could have, inject your personality in speeches. You could have fun in speeches and presentations. So it totally changes the way. And that is exactly what we get to see. So it's great to have these and the opportunities to do it. But we have different contests throughout the year. So can you tell me what the contests are we organise? What are the different contests that we have throughout the year in our clubs? And that's where it actually does start. And I'll keep an eye on if you've got any questions as we go along as well, put them in. And then every time we come to the small end of the session, I'll come back, I'll check the chat box. And if there's any questions, I will pick them up at that point as well. Andrew says, on the contest, to upskill and promote the club. It does, absolutely right, as we said there. It does promote it to a broader audience. So what are the contests we've got coming up? They might vary from where you are in the world, actually. Say they do. Googly says speech and evaluation. Absolutely. You see, we have one. That's right. Speech. What else have we got? Anybody else have any thoughts? Because depending where you are in the world, you might be doing different ones. They don't have to all be exactly the same in where we are. We have it. So yes, we've got table topics contest, Schuber speech contest from Nadia, speech evaluation, international speech. Let's look at international speech and evaluations. Yeah, that's exactly it. So in the UK, we have in southern UK, I think it's in the whole of the UK and Ireland, to be honest, we have the international speech and evaluation contests. They don't have to be in that order. Most people will be doing the international speech, but we could in fact be doing table topics as well. Let me just send a message to Adi because somebody's saying has the started. Let me just say we're live. So that is what we've got. We've got those 4 contests. They're the main 4. They are the 4 most divisions, clubs, areas, and districts will have running. And this is that's what I'm saying we covered. And this is how we do it in the southern UK. But that does vary. It totally does vary on where you are. Most will do the international speech. Some will do table topics now. It's only in fact, the international speech is the only one we have to do by Toastmasters rules. So let's look at the order where they run, so we have an idea of this. This is where it starts, the club, and this is where probably you'll be seeing them starting. Maybe you're organising it in your club contest. So this is where we have the first level, the club. Then the winners from the club will go through to the area. Depending on the size of your area, and an area, if you don't know, is a grouping of clubs. There are typically 3 to 6 clubs in an area. Depending on how many clubs you have in the area, depends how many people go forward from your club. It can be 1 or it can be 2 people per contest. Toastmaster rules lets us, if you have 4 or less clubs in an area, you have the option of sending 2 people forward if the district allows it in your area. In the UK, we do that. So it'll be 1 or 2 people move forward to the area. So it's a grouping of clubs. Then the winners from there move through to division, which is a grouping of areas. Then there's district, which is the top level normally, except for the international speech. The international speech goes through to the world finals. And that's amazingly, incredibly prestigious. So most contests will stop at the district level, except the international speech. That's where they go through. So it's good to know the different areas, and you might be involved in the contest at different levels, even organising and supporting them at different levels. As district chief judge, I'm certainly involved at the district level in getting judges, getting functionaries, making sure everybody's briefed and know exactly what they should be doing. Basically, exactly what we're going to be covering on this webinar. So a question for you. So fingers on the keyboard as we come to this question. We see that the contest starts at the club level, but do we need to hold a club contest? What do you think? Do we actually need to do that? We know it takes work, it takes time and effort, like a lot more than it does to organise a normal meeting. But do we actually need to do one? Is that the rules? Should we have one? No, not should we. Do we need to have one by Toastmasters rules? What do they say on this? What do you think? What do you think? Some people have different opinions on this. And so it'd be interesting to see, what do you think? Notice says, yes, we do. Quite quick there. Absolutely right. I love that. Straight in. Yeah, yes. People going, we've got the yes, we're going to win it. We're going, yes, we do want a contest. Yes. Oh, a dissenter. Andy said no. Anybody else have a thought on the club rule? Where they start off, the first level. So we've got, I think, mainly yeses, one dissent, one no. Well, interestingly, the rules say about from Toastmasters, and we follow the rules, and everything you want is in the rule book. Everything is there. They actually say that you can choose a club contestant by whatever means the club desires. So in fact, we don't actually need to hold a contest. We could toss a coin. We could vote for best speaker. We could just nominate someone. It's entirely up to us what we do in our clubs. Now, I'm not saying you should. I think, as we said, I think we've already said, club contests are amazing. They're great for the members, they're great for our guests. So please do organise them. But it's good to be aware that we don't need to, because there are times I think you may not be the best to do. Personally, I've not organised a club contest before because I took over a club that was failing. We had, I think it was about 4 or 6 members. And to go for all the effort of organising a contest for those same members, it wasn't worth, it didn't seem to be the priority, because of the priority at that time was trying to build the club to keep it going, because they wanted to shut it down. So it's trying to keep it going. And in fact, there's only one person who was even vaguely interested. So what we did, they were just nominated to go forward. So it's good to know that you do have that option, that if you don't need to do a club contest. But if you do one, it has to follow the rules. If you organise a contest, that's it, you're following the rules. You can't be a contest, but with some differences. You have to stick with the rules. An example I give was, one club contest I remember visiting. If they were in a small area, like I mentioned, from this club and all the clubs in the area, 2 people could go forward from the speech and the evaluation contest to the area. 2 could go forward. They only had 2 contestants in each contest. And in one of the contests, the speech contest, one of the speakers went over time and therefore was disqualified. So how do you think that would work? If the club had 2 people go forward, but one was disqualified, can that person still go forward? What do you think? Because they've got 2 slots. So could that person still go forward? Tell me what you think in the chat as to whether you think they could still go forward. Or maybe could the club nominate somebody else to go forward to take that place if they had 2 slots in the area contest? What do you think? Kind of an interesting one, isn't it? And how the club did this. Can they nominate? Can they send 2 people? Anja says no. Got a first no. Yes, he can. No. Any other thoughts? There's 2 slots going. One should go. No. Get a mix. Well, so we know we've organised the club contest, so it has to follow the rules. And if a member is disqualified, then they're disqualified. Only one person. Yeah. So therefore, only one person can go forward. The club can't even nominate somebody else. So in this situation, in fact, the club didn't even need to have a club contest. But unfortunately, they can't nominate. No, they can't. They can't nominate. They can't send anybody else. In that case, you've organised the contest. It follows the rules. One person goes forward. So be aware of that if we do it, we have to follow the rules. And as we go through this webinar, and we'll be looking at all the other requirements when we're doing the contest, that's exactly what we have to follow. And the rules are there. And generally, they're quite sensible, quite clear. So there shouldn't be too much ambiguity in that. So let's have a look at the roles we have in our club contest. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over these from like a high level, just so you get an idea of what they are. And then afterwards, I'm going to go into them a little bit more about what they do. But first of all, let's see what is the people we need to have in our club contest, because there is quite a few functionaries that we need to recruit and have there to help us to organise this amazingly successful contest that we want to have. The first is the contest chair or chairs. You can have 2. And I say 2 because we're organising 2 contests. So you could have one person chairs one and one chairs the other. Or you can have one person chairing them both. It's entirely up to you. Sometimes it's good to have 2 people chairing if they're working through their competent leadership manual, because that's a project within or a role within the competent leadership manual, which hopefully everybody is working through. So we need to have the contest chair or chairs. Then we have the chief judge who's responsible for all of the judging. Then after we have, there's only one chief judge we would have there. Then we need actually, of course, some judges. And there's the requirements that we need. A minimum of 5 voting judges. Minimum. And on top of that, there is actually also the tie-breaking judge as well. So in fact, you need to recruit 6 judges for your contest. 6. I would definitely say have more than 6, because what do you do if you've organised the minimum 6 and somebody doesn't turn up? You need to have something there. You can't have a contest. You can't just do a club contest with 4, because the rules stipulate that number. Okay. And the tiebreaker judge, I probably meant to remind you, is nominated by the chief judge. So you would need to, in fact, find 6 judges for your contest. We also need some timekeepers, and we have 2 timers for the contest. So that's 2 extra people that we'd need. I know in our clubs and normal meetings we have 1, but we have 2 in this particular time, and I'll cover why later. We need people to count the ballots. Minimum 3. That's the minimum 3. Okay, it's not an optional. It's not a recommendation. The rules say these numbers: 3 ballot counters, 2 timekeepers, etc. And it makes sense. You've got 3 people counting the ballots because it's an odd number, and you have to make sure it's done properly and clearly, which is what we always want to make sure with the ballots. Sergeant at Arms, we always have somebody in our clubs doing that. We need at least two Sergeant at Arms, maybe even more if you can. Who else do we need? Well, of course, if it's an evaluation contest, we need somebody to come and speak. We need that speech that people would evaluate in the contest. They need to be recruited. And we need some contestants. So we've got to find some contestants. Some clubs, people are queuing up, wanting to do it. And other clubs I've been involved in, you kind of have to put their arm behind the back sometimes to encourage them to compete. So we need to have the contestants. They are all the roles we need to create that wonderfully successful contest. That's quite a lot of function, isn't it, that we need to have there. We need to have there. So they are the roles. Let's just check the chat box. The Sergeant at Arms, Adam. Any member can be the Sergeant at Arms. Obviously not someone who's competing, but any member, and they don't have to be experienced to do that because they would be properly briefed. Guben, you got a question? Please ask away. Nada, I just want to hear that game. Please, we need minimum 2 timekeepers and 3. That's correct. 2 timers, 3 ballot counters. Absolutely right. That's what we need. It's what the rules say. And as you'll see in a moment when we go through these roles, it'll be a little bit better why we need that number as well. So guys, any questions, please just put them in the chat box. And every time I kind of get to a logical break, I'll quickly look at the chat. Guben says, I'm the chair in my, how am I going to find all these people? As a chair, I don't think any organising any contest should just fall to one person. It should be a joint effort. Depending how long you've been in the club as well. There's obviously the president can help, the VPE, people like that who may have some more experience. I don't know in your club, but that is what we need. We need to have various people doing it. I'm not organising the club. I'm in 3 clubs. I'm not organising any of the contests. But when I'm out and about, I chat to people, and I've recruited the test speaker. I've recruited a couple of judges, and I've recruited some people from my clubs to go out to do that as we're all out as well. So we need you, but you do need to follow those. These are the roles that we have to fill. So yes, they are the roles. Can timers act as counters? In theory, they could, as long as they're not needed in the room for anything else that's going on at the time. That then timers could act as counters. Yeah, absolutely, different role. As long as you don't need them to be timing anything that's going on whilst. Going on. So you'd have to make sure there's a clear break between contests, for example, so that they're not counting why has another contest started. But that they could. Could be. So the judges would come from the outside. Judges are recommended to come from outside. The judges should come from outside. All the judging roles ideally should come outside your club, and the evaluation test speaker definitely should come outside afterwards as well. What I will, there's at the end of this, Gublin, I'll give you pointers handouts where they give you all the briefings to what you need to do. But if you want a particular slide or something like the roles, and I'll give you my email address as well, and you can just message me and I'll send you the details. Not a problem. I'm here to help, here to serve, so I'll let you know what needs doing. Right, so let's move on and I will keep coming back to questions. So let's have a look at who's eligible, who can do this, who can take part in a contest. And the first one, hopefully that won't be a surprise to you, that you have to be a member of Toastmasters International to compete, to judge, to be involved in the contest. It may sound simple, it may sound obvious, but you know, contestants often, or members, people are taking part in contests, and they're often not members of Toastmasters. You have to be a paid up, a registered member of Toastmasters when the club contest is held. So the fact that somebody's come along to your club, they've given over their money. The club treasurer, for example, will be paying it to Toastmasters when they're back from holiday. Doesn't count. The fact it's all been done in good faith, sadly, doesn't count. The person has to be registered with Toastmasters International as a member for your club contest. If they win your club and they're not registered, they will be disqualified at some point up the line. Now, sadly, we've had it where people have won their club, they've won their area, they've won their division, and they've managed to get through all those levels. I mean, in fairness, it should be stopped at every level. The area director, the division director should check. And it's got to district. And we found out that they were not a member at the time. They have to be disqualified. If that happens, I have to say, it won't be me making that phone call to them, because people do get really upset, naturally so. In the last season in the autumn in the UK, at one division, we had 2 people were disqualified at division level because they were not members at the time of their contest, which is really sad and awful for them. I've had it where somebody just joined Toastmasters, entered the table topic contest, won, she was absolutely delighted, and then got told that the club hadn't processed her membership yet, so therefore she was disqualified. And that's awful, and it was a situation that we shouldn't have. Be aware that that goes the same for judges and the chief judge. Just because they might be well known within the local circuit of Toastmasters doesn't necessarily mean they are a member. So that should be checked as well, that they are members of Toastmasters. If somebody's a member of a pre-charter club, so pre-charter club is a new club, it hasn't yet become official within Toastmasters. If they are exclusively a member of that club, then they're not a member of Toastmasters. Yeah, they're not a member because until the club gets to 20 members, you're not a member. So they would not be eligible to be a judge or the chief judge or anything like that. And this is an important one as well. They need to have completed that project. In the UK, we're still on the CC, so it's project 6. They need to have completed before they can compete in the international speech contest. Before. Project 6 cannot be their competition speech. It needs to have been done before that night, before they started. So please check that with any of your members who are taking part as well. So let's see who cannot complete. There's some people are not allowed to take part. Functionaries, so if you're the contest chair, you can't take part. If you're taking a functionary role within the contest, you cannot also compete. Hope that's kind of obvious. I think you shouldn't be doing 2 things. If you're chairing it and also trying to speak in it, that would be seen quite unfair, wouldn't it? So you're not allowed to do that. And district officers are not allowed to compete. I'm not allowed to compete. Our district director isn't, our club growth director, program quality. They're not allowed to compete either in any of these contests that we have. Or anyone judging beyond club level. So let me explain this, because this again is where somebody could disqualify themselves from competing. If you're competing in your club, and even if you win in your club, you can go around to another local club and judge. That's perfectly fine. You can judge in both. If you win your club and now you're going to compete at the area contest, you're not allowed to now go and judge another area. If you happen to be competing in an area contest and you do go to another area contest and judge, you will disqualify yourself from competing. So be aware of that, because there's too confused. Sometimes people won't come out and judge at club levels, which can cause problems if you're, especially in a more rural area, not so many clubs, but they can come out and do so. And certainly we wouldn't want anybody from disqualifying themselves when they are taking part in that. So that's kind of quite an important one to know as well. So let me just quickly check the chat box. A district officer, Adam, can be a test speaker. Yep, that's perfectly fine, because they're not actually competing. They're just giving a speech. That's fine about this. How do we chairs? We only have to have done project. So project 6 is only if you're competing, not if you're chairing. So I don't need to have done project 6 to chair the contest or be the timekeeper or a ballot counter, only if they're actually competing in the international speech. That rule doesn't apply to, say, the evaluation contest or the humour speech or the table topics. It's only the international speech contest should be there. How much experience? How experienced should be the contestant for the speech? How experienced should the I'm not sure, Jictor, what you mean by that. Are you talking about the test speaker for the evaluation contest? If you are, they should be reasonably experienced, so that the contestants have something to evaluate. And also, I mean, I wouldn't put somebody up there as an icebreaker, for example, giving their first speech. because only having 6, 7, whatever people evaluating can be quite harsh. When you're experienced, you love that opportunity to have all that evaluation. So it should be somebody reasonably experienced, reasonably competent. And obviously that varies. Some people can be quite good at speaking and have not done many speeches, and others obviously the other way around. So use your judgment to find somebody. There's no rule on it, but somebody should be reasonably good, a reasonable level that the contestants can have. Right, so let's move on, and we will look at now. Oops, if I make the right one, here we go. The roles. We're going to go a little bit more detail on what the roles do that you may be taking or people in your contest will be doing. So first we'll look at the contest chairs. The very first thing when you're chairing the contest is each speaker needs to fill in an eligibility form. They need to confirm the speech title. It's confirming that it is their material. The rules say that it should be mainly your material. And I have seen it, especially in humour speeches, where you usually sees it, where somebody's taken a YouTube video, basically, and delivered that. And they think that's original because it's my interpretation on it. Well, it's not. And they would be disqualified. But in that rule, they are saying that it is. So you need to give them the form, collect those in before you then move on. And as the contest, you give them a full briefing of what it is that they are doing, what's going to happen in that. And we will actually cover a briefing to give you an example that if you're the contest chair, the kind of briefing that you should be given. And again, at the end, I'll give you a link where you can download loads of briefing notes that will cover that for you. Draw lots. So we need to have the order on which members speak, and it's done randomly rather than alphabetically or people choosing. Draw lots, put numbers out of a hat or whatever way you want to do it, but draw lots and then record that information. But it is totally done randomly, so we know the order of them. There is a speaking area. Now, it's usually obvious what the speaking area is. If you're meeting a room, it's just usually the front area within the meeting room, and that's generally where we will speak. You might have a stage. You might have anywhere, but where is the speaking area? It would need to be agreed. You might say it's the area up till the front row. It could be 2 rows up the walkway. If you've got a stage, it could just be the stage or there in front of the stage. But it should be defined and agreed beforehand. And that information should be relayed to the chief judge to tell the judges. Once the area is defined, a contestant could come out the speaking area, but then it's up to the judges if they want to reflect that in their voting. So you define as a contest chair the speaking area, convey that to the chief judge who tells the judges, and then if the people do decide, supposing you decide it's up to the row 2 and somebody walks right to the back of the room, they're entitled to. Nobody's going to stop them, but the judges then have that option to to reflect that in their marking. Point out the timing lights. That's very important, especially if you're in a different venue, but make sure everybody knows where the timing lights are, or the cards, whatever device you use, because people don't always realise it, especially if you're organising maybe an area contest or you're in a different room. I have been to contests where people haven't been told, and it leads to big issues. And it's unfair to suddenly put that pressure on the contestant, isn't it? That they're talking and then suddenly they're looking around, where are the lights? I was at one area contest, and I think of the 6 people in the contest, 40% got disqualified for going over time because they weren't told about the lights. They rather than being in front of them where you'd expect the timing lights to be, and they were lights, they were right over at the angle, basically in your blind spots because you'll be looking ahead. So they were situated over there, and 2 of the bulbs, the green and the yellow, were the same colour. So people didn't really know, and nobody told them or demonstrated them. So we always want to make sure that they are demonstrated so the speakers know exactly where the cards are, the lights, where the timers are, to make sure that they know where they are. And that just makes it so much easier. So get the timers, even if it's your club meeting, hold up the cards, put on the lights so the people do know exactly where they are and what they should be doing. And in the table topics contest, that is also your role to set that question. If I was organising the contest and you were my contest chair doing that, I would take a quick check of that as well. I have seen some really inappropriate questions said for table topics, both inappropriate and actually too long as well. I mean, one contest, the question was so long, because what we do in the table topics contest, we give the question, we repeat the question, and it took 40 seconds to repeat the question. So it's basically a 20-second question, a line of poetry or verse of poetry followed by a question. 40 seconds, far, far too long. So if you're organising it, maybe help the person, the contest chair. And if you are the contest chair, get some opinion. Obviously, anybody who's competing cannot know the question. That would be a bit silly. But look at how you can help people to do that. So I mentioned the briefing. I'm just going to go through a briefing of what it is that if you are the contest chair, what is it? Let me just turn the slide off while I do this. So this is a briefing as contest chair that you would do to the contestant to make sure they really understand what's going on. So this is the briefing that I would give to the international speech contest. So your speeches, imagine you're competing, your speeches will be from 5 to 7 minutes. A contestant will be disqualified if the speech is less than 4 minutes 30 seconds or more than 7 minutes 30 seconds. The green signal will be displayed at 5 minutes and remain displayed for 1 minute. The yellow signal will be displayed at 6 minutes and remain displayed for 1 minute. The red signal will be displayed at 7 minutes and will remain on or displayed until the conclusion of the speech. There will be no indication to the contestant that they have gone over time. For example, banging the gavel, waving cards, or flashing lights, anything at all. Prior to announcing the contest results, the chief judge will announce if there have been any time disqualifications, but not name the contestant or contestants involved. There will be 1 minute silence after each contestant to allow judges to complete their voting. After the final speech, there will be silence until all the ballot papers have been counted and the chief judge has left the room. Timing begins with the first definite verbal or non-verbal communication with the audience. The speaker shall begin speaking within a short time of arriving in the speaking area and is not permitted to delay the contest unnecessarily. I will introduce each contestant exactly the same by announcing their name, their speech title, repeating the speech title, repeating their name. And now I move on to draw lots. So they know now exactly where the timing lights are. They know when they're going to be held or when they're coming up. And notice I said that the cards stay up. Well, so often in contests, in meetings, people just go and wave them, put them up. But they go up, they stay up. That's really important. So we can't assume that the contestant has seen the card or the light. It stays on the whole time. And also notice there's a great rule in contests I've seen at every level, including district, that after the final speaker, the judges have 2 minutes to complete their voting. 2 minutes. There's no such rule. There's nothing that says that. The rules quite clearly state that after the final speaker, there's silence until all the ballot papers have been collected. And it could take, and in fact, it will take more than 2 minutes. So let's make sure it's until all the ballots have been collected and the chief judge and the counters have left the room. Right? I think the longest I've had to wait is probably about 10 minutes. And that's hard, keeping silence for 10 minutes in a room, waiting for somebody to complete their voting. But it is important we keep it silent, because if people start nattering or whispering, it just builds up. And then it just becomes a big noise. It's hard for people. So if the contest chair, keep the silence until all the ballots have been collected. That's kind of really important. And these notes, I've prepared notes for briefing for all the four contests we do, which I will share with you at the end. Let me just jump back then to the slides. See where we are. There we go, the table topics. So that is the role of the contest chair. Just going to quickly check the chat, see if there's anything. Adam, I will come on to the timers shortly and explain what the timers do. Can the speech of the contestant be counted? They can give a speech if they want to and use it, but obviously it would not be evaluated and the objectives they're trying to reach would not be announced. So if Fred Bloggs is giving a speech as part of their speech, we wouldn't say, okay, they're actually doing it as a project number 7. The objectives are, that would never, ever be mentioned. Sylvia, thank you. I'm glad you found it useful. Appreciate that. That's what it's all about, trying to help. Right, our next important role, one close to my heart, is I covered all that, didn't I? Yes, so slides just jumped. Oh, no, I didn't. I beg your pardon. I did not cover that bit. 2 bits I did not cover. The Sergeant at Arms, they would also brief to make sure the Sergeant at Arms know their role. In the contest, we'd have the Sergeant at Arms taking the contestants out and bringing them back in again. For example, if we're doing the evaluation contest, they need to take them out and bring them back in after each person so that we can have the contest as well. And important, they're impartial. You're totally impartial as a contest chair. Right? So we wouldn't, for example, say, so first contestant is Andy O'Sullivan. Gosh, I've known Andy for many years. He's given some great speeches. He's currently the chief judge. Been a member for 11 years. I know he gives great speeches. Wish they would say that. But we wouldn't say any of that like we might do in our club contests. Sorry, our club meetings. Nor would when you get up as contest say, wow, I never knew ABC. That was really funny the way he covered that. We say nothing like that. We're kind of really formal and strict on this. I try and keep a poker face so when I'm chairing, so it doesn't look like I'm smiling more than for one contestant or any of the others. It's literally introducing them. When it comes to it, name, speech title, name. That's it. And then when you stand up, when they finish, it's silence for the judges. No comment, no introduction, nothing. And that way it comes over totally impartial. Every contestant is being treated the same, which is what we want, isn't it? Which is really what we want. Sergeant at Arms, I will come on to. No, don't worry. It's all going to be covered in our time together today. Chief Judge. And the Chief Judge, and again, there's briefing notes on this. They are responsible for the judges, the ballot counters, and the times. They will brief them. They will brief them during their time. So allow time for that as well. Next, I'll mention this at the end. This Sunday coming and next Wednesday, there's 2 more webinars. It's on Sunday and I'll be live again on Wednesday, covering the role of Chief Judge and judging, how to judge, which is great whether you are judging or even if you're a contestant. Because if you're a contestant, do you know what the judges are looking for? It helps you get that 1 extra point that could make the whole difference as well. You're welcome, Anja. You're very welcome. So the Chief Judge is going to say briefing the judges, briefing the ballot counters and the timers as well. And one of the things they do, they select the tiebreaker judge. So you give them the pool of judges, they select them. I have seen it at all levels where people have said to me or other people, and it's caused problems, Fred is going to be your tiebreaker judge. It's not for anybody to tell the Chief Judge who's going to be the tiebreaker judge because it has to be confidential and totally anonymous. Whereas if you're as the organizer or somebody else is telling them who the tiebreaker judge, now we all know. So we don't tell anybody who should be the Chief Judge. We don't select for the Chief Judge who those are. We keep it totally confidential and secretive because that's what it is all about. The Chief Judge also oversees, so they leave the room with the ballot counters and they will help them make sure the ballots are done properly, part of their briefing, and then they fill in the certificates as well. These roles I will cover in a bit more detail. And then usually at the end, they will present those certificates to our wonderful winners, having done all their hard work to compete as well. So the Chief Judge is overseeing it. The Chief Judge does not vote. They are managing it, overseeing the judging process, making sure that everything is coming together from the ballot counters, from the timers and the counters, and they then actually also collect the tiebreakers ballot paper. They personally collect that one, which is why they are the only person who knows who they are. Let's look at the judges. So we need some lovely judges in our club contests, don't we? They're the ones who are going to decide it. They decide who comes in those places, first, second, or third. So they have a form. It's a ballot guide that they look at, and each speaker is judged on the criteria laid out on that form. And I'll show you the forms a bit later as well. They have that role. They've got to come out at first, second, and third place. If they have a tie on their form, it's down to them to break it. They have to break it to give us that first, second, and third place winner. That's their sole responsibility. They use the guide, they use the form to come up with why they felt, in their opinion, and it's all subjective, that speaker scored higher in that one than against another speaker. And that's why it's actually good to have a good pool of judges, because we all have a natural bias to certain things in a speech that we like. Although it's on there, we might give it higher or lower marks than somebody else. So that's why you want to have a good pool of judges in your contests as well. And this is really important, isn't it? Acting fairly, acting impartially, not being biased in any way. We don't want to be biased. And I suppose we have some bias naturally in us, but we like certain types of speeches more. We like certain things. But judging by following the form, and if they're briefed properly by the chief judge, they hopefully will, they will act to follow those objectives and then act totally fairly and impartially. So, and we try not to, as judges, give, and I've seen people say this, oh, she's a really good speaker. Yeah, we're going to enjoy this. I'm glad she's competing. That doesn't matter as a judge, the fact that she's a really good speaker. It's what is she doing today that matters. Whether maybe you felt that last contest he should have won and was hard done by. As a judge, that is not going to affect today. It's what we're doing today. So whether she's a good speaker or he should have won last time, we don't look at. We look at their speeches today and act impartially and vote based on that and that alone. So in area, and this is only the area contest, so if ever you're judging or you're organising an area contest, there are a couple of extra criteria to be aware of membership, 6 months or more. And then there is the speeches, project 6, they need to have completed as well. The tiebreaker judge, as I mentioned, is totally selected by the chief judge. The difference with them is that they have to vote for everybody. Not vote, but they will actually place them. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. Every speaker in the contest will be placed. So if there's 6 speakers, the normal judges just place the top 3. These will actually have to have them listed all the way through the 6. And then if there's a tie for any of those places of the 6 speakers, we use the tiebreakers judge to break that down. So we move on to our next people, timekeepers, which I think somebody was asking about earlier as well. So this is what they would do while we have 2 timekeepers. One is purely running the cards or the lights, depending what you have. Right, that's it. And they're there. They make sure they're held up. They make sure that the speakers can see them, the contestants, the whole time. And I mentioned they're held up the whole. If there's a card, the whole, not just flashed up like you sometimes see in club meetings, up the whole time. Make sure the contestants see it. Make sure the lights are on. That really is their responsibility to make sure it's done. And that's all they do. Totally that. Then we have the second one, who's now the official recorder at the time. They use the stopwatch on their phone or whatever device they're using. And they will then record that on the sheet. There's a special sheet, which I'll show you later, and they record the time. So each speaker. So you see, it's a split role. One is doing the timing and recording it. The other one is running the lights or the cards. And that makes sure it's done to the second as well. I also think personally, there's like a double south face, because we've all done it. Maybe we get so engrossed in a speech that you're suddenly not looking at the time. And a second is a second when it's a contest. So you've got like a double check as well. So we always have the 2 timekeepers running that as well, that all the way through. And as I mentioned earlier, no signals. So it's important the timer is briefed on that. There are no signals as they go over time. The waving the card, the gavels, the bells. When I'm at contests, when clubs often get out the standard kit, and at the contest you often see the gavel on the table with the timekeepers or a bell. Put those away. Take the temptation away. Never have them out. Always ensure that they are totally hidden away. Because we don't want any accidental temptation to pick up the gavel and bang after 30 seconds. Because quite frankly, they've got 7:30, saying a speech. They want to talk for 10 minutes. They can talk for 10 minutes. We don't stop them. We don't indicate to them. They'll be disqualified, but we don't indicate. And that's the difference, is you've got that 1 second. They go, so 1 second over. So we give them 30 seconds. They speak for 7:31. They're suddenly disqualified. And I hate to see that. But it does happen at all levels, even the world finals. people get disqualified for suddenly going over time. The other important role we have is the ballot counters, and they absolutely collect the ballots. So they will go around. So you'll want to know if you're a chief judge, or the chief judge will want to know exactly how many ballot papers they're counting. They will tell the ballot counters, and we'd make sure that they collect them, and then they go somewhere else to count them. So you need to think about maybe where they're going to go to do that. You don't want to be sitting in the back of the room or somewhere where all the contestants are going to be if you go to break. And I've been in that situation sometimes. You need to go, if it's a pub, there may not be enough room. So you need to go a table at the back of the pub somewhere, or down the corridor, or somewhere where there's nobody else around. So they can count together to make sure they're there. And we have free ballot counters. Free ballot counters. The rules say free. And I get that's because then it's free people, less likely to be any doubt on the results at all. Sergeant at Arms, we also had a question on the Sergeant at Arms of what they would be doing and the number of that. And here's why we'd do this. So they've got the normal meeting duties that we maybe ask them to do, greeting guests and members. And also you're going to have guests because you've got judges coming from outside your club. So they'll be involved with doing that. And also they're going to be involved with the supervision of the contestants. So this is why you need at least 2 of them. This is why. In the evaluation contest, what happens is you have the test speaker. They deliver their speech. And their speech is 5 to 7 minutes, exactly the same time. They then leave and go somewhere else. So you need to know where they're going to go as well. Somewhere they can go to write their notes. Where could they go to do that? The Sergeant at Arms will be with them while they're doing that. And they time 5 minutes. They have 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes is from the time they reach that room, wherever you're going to put them. 5 minutes. Number of times I've seen contest chairs saying they've now got 5 minutes before they've even stood up from the room to leave. It's 5 minutes from the time they reach their destination. After the 5 minutes is up, the Sergeant at Arms will collect the notes of the contestants and keep them. They give them back to them when they are introduced. So as the contest chair starts saying, Andy O'Sullivan, you give them back their notes, not before. So if the Sergeant at Arms is now with the contestant waiting to give them notes, the other contestants are on their own. So that's why we have 2 Sergeant at Arms at least. One stays with them the whole time. One will walk back and forth with the contestant who's going to speak. And the way I would normally do is, you first after 5 minutes, you bring the first contestant back to the meeting room. When they finish speaking and we're all clapping and we're now having a minute's silence, the next one is brought in and they stand at the back ready to go. So you see the importance of having 2 as well. That's why we need at least 2. We would do the same if for a table topics contest. One stays with the contestant, one walks back and forth. I mean, they can alternate it so they get to see some of the speeches. But that's why we'd want to have the 2. Hopefully that clears that one up. Then what do we want? Test speaker. So evaluation contest, we need somebody to give the speech, right? We've got to evaluate. So it isn't recommended they do come from outside the club, from somewhere else. And that makes it a level playing field. Because if somebody's speaking in the contest and I've had the pleasure of evaluating once or twice, maybe I know a little bit more about them than you do if you've never evaluated them. So if we get somebody that nobody's ever evaluated or heard before, it's a level playing field for everybody. So that's why it's recommended to do that. And it's recommended go outside and do. It's a wonderful opportunity to go out, give a speech and be evaluated by so many people in a strange club. So that's why it's recommended. I know sometimes it's not always practical. If you're not in a major city, it could be more challenging to do that, but it's certainly recommended to do that. And then what to say? And then I'll come to questions after I've done this one. Oh yeah, 5 to 7 minutes. Again, that's the rule. So don't try and cut it down and think you haven't got time. It is 5 to 7 minutes that they get to speak. It's a normal speech. Then when they finished, the contestants for the evaluation contest now leave. Right? Afterwards. I mentioned earlier where I've gone to contests and had to interject when I wasn't even there in official capacity. That was an occasion. I was at one contest, evaluation contest, and the contest chair wanted all the contestants to leave the room before the test speaker. Before. So he wanted them to leave, and then we're going to have the test speaker. I'm not sure what they would evaluate because they wouldn't have heard it. So we have to, make sure it's done correctly. And actually, another one I've just remembered, after the test speaker and evaluation contest, the contest chair announced all the contestants now had 1 minute to complete their evaluation notes. 1 minute, and he wanted silence, which again is totally wrong. They got 5 minutes from the time they leave their destination. So they are the main functionaries, the main roles. So before we go, I'm going to look next at the forms we need to have available. Before I do that, I'm just going to look at the questions. Adam, the test speaker can be on absolutely anything. It doesn't have to be inspirational. It could be absolutely any subject that they feel, well, it's an appropriate subject, of course, to Toastmasters standard. It can be anything. So it does not have to be inspirational. I've seen at district level, I've seen speeches from the test speaker that are not inspirational. It's what we normally see, but absolutely doesn't have to be. Why is it called a test speaker? They're basically the test speaker or the mystery speaker because nobody knows who they are. So the contest chair should not announce who they are. Nobody should know who the speaker is until they're announced. So they're giving a speech like the test, I suppose, and then everybody evaluates them. So now clubs, normally one person gives a speech, one person evaluates. Here we have one speaker, everybody evaluates them, and we keep them totally anonymous. So nobody should know who they are, apart from the contest chair and probably the person organising it. That's why we have that. And actually on that, so the contest chair will know who the mystery speaker is and no one else. Mystery speaker or test speaker, by the way. I think the rules say test speaker. The judges who are coming along to judge should only be known to the chief judge. So if you're organising the judges, nobody else should know who they are. The contest chair shouldn't know. Nobody else should be told who they are. Only the chief judge. We try and keep it confidential. And judges, we do keep confidential. I've been to contests where after it's all over, they want all the judges to stand up to thank them. No, we don't thank them. We can thank them, but we don't ask them to stand up. Another time they wanted them to come to the front to give them some chocolate to thank them for coming. Really nice thing to do. But again, we can't thank them for doing that. We keep the judges anonymous. Now, I know often you've got these strange people in your room holding up pieces of paper, so it becomes quite clear who they are, but we do our best to keep them as anonymous as possible. One stopwatch enough? In theory, it is. I'd always have, most people these days have a mobile phone with a stopwatch on it, so just make sure it's fully charged and ready to go. You can have 2 people timing it just to be double sure there's no malfunctions. Belts and braces if ever you can. And then there's the rules, the contest rules, which I'll also share at the end in a moment, actually coming up, has a checklist at the back as well of a lot of the things you need. And I'll also tell you where you can get resources from. I think that's all the questions. So let's have a look at some of the forms that we need to have at our contest. And there are quite a few. There are quite a few. So this is the first one. This is the eligibility form. So every speaker will need to fill one of these in. So this is the one I mentioned when I did the contest chairs briefing. This is the one the contest chair gives to the speakers to complete. And then once they've been filled in, given back to the contest chair, ultimately the contest chair should give those to the chief judge. It becomes their responsibility. That's the first one. And now this one is important, especially in these contests. The evaluation contest note sheet. In the evaluation contest, this is the only thing contestants can use to make their notes. During the speech, after the speech, while they're delivering their evaluation. This is it. Nothing else. That is it. That one sheet of paper. Now, I know it's basically a white sheet of paper with a Toastmasters logo and a little bit of writing on it, but it has to be that sheet. If you give somebody a blank sheet of paper from the photocopier, that will not do. The rules say it has to be that sheet of paper. They can't use their iPads. They can't use their notebooks. They can't use their own papers or anything. It has to be that sheet of paper. That and nothing else is all they're allowed. That's it. You can give them multiple copies of the sheet, but it has to be the same number for everybody. So if one speaker wants 3 copies, everybody should have the option of having 3 copies. You can't let one have 3 and then say, well, there's only enough for everybody else to have 1. That would be unfair, as I'm sure you can see. So they can have multiple copies of this form, but everybody then has to have the same number of copies. Right? This is all they can use. And that's really important. If they want to tear it up into small notes to go in the palm of their hand, absolutely fine. They can tear it up. They can't use Post-its. They can't use iPads, phones, or any other devices. It has to be that sheet. So please make sure this sheet is available for your contestant if you're doing the evaluation contest. All right, it's really important. Last year, well, I think it's the first year it came out, we had contests all over, all levels, not district, because I was doing that, but even at division levels where people were not supplied with this sheet and they were using their own paperwork. Unfortunately, it has to be this sheet only. So make sure that is available. It's what the rules say, and we're all here as good Toastmasters to follow those rules. This is the one the chief judge would have, and each judge fills this one in and gives it back to them as well, saying that they are going to do the all the that is a good way and follow the code of ethics, and of course that they are eligible as well to do it. And then depending on the contests as well, there's all these different forms that you would have. So this is the one for the international speech contest. There's also a different one for the evaluation contest, table topics, and humour speech. They are different. The objectives down the side that the judging is being done on are different. So please have the right one there. I've been to a contest as chief judge and been given totally the wrong forms and told they're all the same, that will do. No, they will not do. The humour speech has different criteria down it to an international speech. Table topics is different to an evaluation. It has to be the right form. So please make sure you have the right ones printed, the right ones ready for the contest. Now to the bottom on this one, you see the judge's form. It has where there's going to be the top 3 places. So that's what the judge fills in. They fold it on the dotted line. They tear that off. They fold it up, they hold it up and give it to the ballot counters. The top part they take home and destroy. But compare that form, and we're now going to show the tiebreakers judge. You see now how they have a different form. They're placing all the contestants, as we mentioned. You see, so you need to have a different form for the tiebreaker judge. Different form. Let me just flick back to make sure you see the bottom. They've got everybody they're placing. Well, this one just has the top 3. So again, make sure you've got the tiebreakers judges form as well. You actually only need 1 per contest because there's only 1 tiebreaker judge. That is all you need for that. Then the other forms we need is the counters. So the counters are going to go around, they're going to collect those ballot papers and go off and fill them in. They use this form here. Judges and contestants are listed, and then they give them the marks. 3 points for first place, 2 points for second place, and 1 point for a third place winner, or that are placed by the judges, and then they tally them all up through the end. This is the one the timers fill in, or the official timer will fill in, marking the exact time that our contestants spoke. And that's where suddenly if they go over, it is down to the chief judge would suddenly say they would be disqualified. Then after that, there's more. This is the notification winner. So if you're doing a club contest, we need to let the area director know who's won and who's representing the club in the area contest. It's an area contest, the division contest, and so forth. So there's that form as well. And we love to reward people and recognise people don't win Toastmasters. So what we would also have for people is the certificate of participation. So everybody who's spoken would get one of those. This does only go to the speakers. I mentioned earlier that the judges are anonymous. And one judge, when I was doing this briefing, said, well, when do I get my certificate? I said, I didn't even know what certificate he meant. And he goes, I always get, he's been to he gets called up and given a certificate of participation. So we don't give those to judges. They just go away with our love and gratitude for coming. We don't give them any recognition at all. Then there's a little bit more. I'm finished here, unfortunately, but we need the certificates, the first, second, and third place for each of the contests as well. Ideally, have spare sets. Mistakes happen, names get misspelled. So have more than 2 copies available just in case. If you can have 3, maybe 4 sets, they can always be reused again. But just in case a mistake happens, or for example, the 3rd place winner's written on the 1st place sheet or something like that. Mistakes happen. I've made mistakes on the form. So you need minimum 2. My recommendation would be at least 3, ideally 4. And finally, the rule book. Yes, the rule book is where everything is. Have a copy available. Then if anything happens at the contest, at least then you've got something to reference. Have a copy of the rule book printed out as well with you. That is a lot of printing, isn't it? A lot of paperwork to do. Let me check back the chat while we're doing this. Sylvia, who should organise these details? People taking the roles and getting on materials together. It should be the person doing all the printing can be anybody who's doing it. There should be one person, obviously, rather than somebody printing one, somebody printing the other, because then nobody knows what's done. But normally they can pick certainly doing printing. So somebody can get their company to sponsor the printing, then that's absolutely fine. Anybody can do the printing. But I would suggest one person does it. I guess no, they're not. You have to go and get the documents. Gubin, they're not sent to you. I will share the resource afterwards. You need to go to the website, download them, and print them. Yes, Tony, there is one place. I will get the forms. Elizabeth, whoever's organising the contest, I would say, should be getting the forms because they're organising the contest. So I'm not saying they have to print them. Get the link, send the link to somebody, make sure they are printed as well. Which leads on nicely to the final part of our time together, and maybe the bit you've all been waiting for. Yes, even more of it. Andy's amazing advice. These are some more tips based on what I've seen in contests, what can be forgotten, what can go wrong. So let's run through these together. And actually, some of them we've just been touching on, thinking about it in those great questions you've been asking. So thank you for doing that as well. Know exactly who's helping. So have a list available on the day. Who's doing what? For example, judges. If you raise the judges, have a list of names that you can give to the chief judge so they know who they've got. And then the chief judge can stand there, she can speak to people, and she just tick off the names so that she knows who are her judges. They're there. Rather than saying, oh, it's Fred Bloggs. I don't know Fred. I haven't met Fred before. And we were trying to wonder who he is. She can stand there, she can tick them off, and then make sure all the forms all tally up to that. So have a list of that as well. Same with knowing who your timers and counters and even contestants are. So that the contest chair knows who the contestants are. They've got a list and they can mark them off. Make sure all the forms come in. Before the contest, give them the role instructions. Make sure they're available maybe on the day as well. For example, the briefing that I went through for the contest chair. Have that printed out. Don't assume that the contest chair is going to print out and bring it with them. They may not. And then you may not get a proper briefing. The chief judge has a certain briefing they need to do to all the functionaries, which again, I know I keep saying that, but I will share at the end. They had that printed out so the chief judge knows what they're doing in case they haven't bought it. And then by doing that, we can make sure we've got that good, high-level quality contest that we all want. One of the things I'm sure we've all experienced in our clubs and meetings is no-shows. So be aware of that. What are you going to do if somebody doesn't show up? Who could cover if somebody doesn't show up? Like I mentioned, if you go for the minimum number of judges and one of them doesn't show up, or even 2, what do? You've got to meet that minimum to have a contest, to have an official contest. How would you cope? So be aware that, have some back planning. Now, I know in our class we'll have some experienced members who can just drop into anything. If they're competing, they can't. So have that backup plan. Know what to do if people don't show up, but certainly have more than the minimum judges just in case. This one we've touched on. Know who's printing. Make sure you know who's printing and they are coming. I've actually been to an area contest before, and the area director had no paperwork printed out at all. Nothing. Zilch, not a thing. She didn't think about it. So I had nothing. I mean, we can't even do a contest without the printing. By luck that day, somebody worked nearby and could go back to their office and print it. But be aware, make sure, 100% sure, you do know who is doing the printing. And they are coming and they've got it all done. every single bit, and enough copies of everything. That's key as well. They know how many copies they need, how many judges forms, how many contestants forms, etc. Really important, because you run out of judges forms or contestants forms, they can't fill the form in, they can't compete because they've not signed eligibility. A judge can't judge if they can't sign eligibility, or they haven't got a judging form even. So allow extras for all these kind of things. If your club has trophies, or your area has trophies, think about calling those back in before the contest in advance. Something that I've messed up on before, and literally the night before a division contest I was organising when I was a division director, I suddenly remembered the trophies. So think about those and get those in for everyone. The stage time is really important as well. Everybody has to be treated fairly, as we've covered during our time together. So therefore, nobody should have stage time if they're competing. No one. Another example I would give is one area contest I was at. They had it says table topics and humour speech. So they did a humour speech contest first, table topics in the second half. It's fine. And then they decided that they would do some table topics when the judge left, rather than going to break. So they started giving out table topics, not to everybody, just to 4 people. 2 of those were contestants in the table topics contest. That's unfair. It's unfair that person's now getting practice, the others didn't. And also, as judges, we're naturally judging them. Even psychologically, you're saying, well, they're not officially judging them, you're seeing them. You're making an impression. Now, it could go against them. They did badly with the table topic, but if they were really funny, really good, you might start making those presumptions already when you see them come up again. So therefore, nobody should have any stage time whatsoever if they are competing. Another person to be aware of is the club president. Now, if the club president is competing in the contests, somebody else will need to open the meeting. They can close the meeting, but the club president should not open and be up there talking when they're then going to be competing in the contest. So be aware of any stage time that there is. We've covered the briefing, haven't we, that we need to give to the contestants. There's one that the chief judge needs to give to the judges as well. Allow time for that. My recommendation is 30 minutes prior. So if you're an evening club like mine is, we start at 6:30. So therefore we ask all the judges, counters, functionaries, contestants to be there by 6 p.m. for their briefing. Because it takes a long while to do a briefing. Sometimes people will turn up late and then you say, wait there, and then they disappear. It takes a long time to do it. When I do the chief judge briefing, to do that thoroughly will take me about 20 minutes. 20 minutes for the judges. Then I've also got to do the counters and the timers and all the paperwork. So allow time for that. Because so often I get invited to contests and they say, can you get here 10 minutes early? That's not enough time to do all the briefing. To do the briefings properly, we now need to allow time to make sure that we're doing it right for all our contestants, what they're working. So allow an extra time. My recommendation would be 30 minutes to get it done really properly. And the other thing is for the contest chair to be aware there is a difference between being a contest chair and being a Toastmaster. The number of times people have said to me, after they've been given all the briefing documents and not read them weeks in advance, well, I've done Toastmaster, it's all the same, isn't it? No, it's not the same. As we've covered, it's more formal, you're being fair to everybody, you're not ad-libbing, it's more structured, you've got a whole briefing to go through to the audience as well when you start. Totally different role. So please make sure whoever's taking that role understands that it is different. Totally, totally different. We touched on the contest table the table topics question when you're doing that. Make sure it's appropriate, make sure it's short, and it's fair to everybody as well. Something we want to be 100% fair on. So always check that if you're organising it. And if you're the contest chair setting the question, be aware of that. Make sure it's something that people can clearly hear and understand when you are doing it. And also, when you're the contest chair or the person doing it, the question has to be the same. What I mean by that, as a division contest last year, the question asked from the first to the first person to the same question that's asked to the last contestant changed at least 3 times. It changed. One time it added an extra sentence. Another time an important word was dropped. It has to be the same question. I don't like to see contest chairs showing us how great they are with their memory. Write it down and say it verbatim, word for word. One word can make a difference and send the person a totally different way. Certainly adding an extra sentence to it. It has to be the same question. That won't be fair otherwise to everybody who's attending. So let's be aware of that. We mentioned judging is secret, so we do our utmost to keep judges secret. I've been there as well with people shouting, "Hello, if you're a judge, can you raise your hand? Can you raise your hand, please, and come to the front?" No. We want the judge to be anonymous. So therefore, we don't ask judges to raise their hand. We don't do the judges briefing right at the front of the room after shouting out to everybody so people know, oh, they're the judges. We want to keep it quiet and anonymous for everybody. So don't identify the judges in any way, shape or form during any of those briefings. Silence, 100% silence during that 1 minute at the end. So 1 minute during each speaker. Sometimes the contest chair will need to repeat that because people start whispering and talking a bit. So 100% silence, the judge can really focus on giving that right marking. And as I mentioned, it's not 2 minutes, which we often see said by contest chairs. It's silence all the way through until all the ballot papers have been collected and people have left. Know in advance where you're going to do the briefings. Think about that. Where can the chief judge go to brief the judges privately? Where in your venue is it that they could go somewhere? Even if it's a corridor or being done, it's like basically a storeroom, quite frankly, before, depending on the venue. They need to go somewhere to be able to brief the judges. The contestants can be briefed at the front of the room. That's perfectly fine. They don't need to go anywhere. I think that's the best place for contestants. And then they're in the room. They know what they're doing. You show them the lights. Judges really need to go somewhere else. And certainly the contestants will, if it's an evaluation or table topics, a holding area somewhere else. So think about where you can put those in advance as well. And also, you know, judges and contestants can raise protests. So you might have to allow time for that. It happens. I've seen protests raised by judges at all levels, even district level. We've had a district level. You have to allow time for it. I've been told by contest chairs there's no time. We can't have it. Unfortunately, if there's a protest, there's a protest. We can't say there's no time for it. So have that in the back of your mind that you might need to allow time for a judge's process if in the unfortunate situation it does happen. And that's why it's always good to have in the back pocket some table topics ready just in case it happens, or the judge takes a long time having to do a recount on the vote, something like that. Be aware, and then you're ready to keep the meeting going, keep the energy going, keep the momentum flowing whilst everybody's outside doing that, especially at the end of the meeting or the contest where maybe you've done the speech, you've now done the evaluation, the chief judge has gone out. Great time to present the certificates of participation, doing announcements, that kind of thing. And then if the chief judge is still not back in, that's the time to have the table topics ready. Let me just check back with you. So there, can the person organising the con? Yes, you can. I wouldn't. The only thing I would say, I didn't covered in the rules. This one, I think it'd be unfair that the person organising, the person who gets all the judges, is also competing. I don't think it's not against the rules, but I also think about the perception of fairness. So if you're organising the judges, it could be perceived that you've got all your friends round to do the judging because they're more likely to vote for you. So although there's nothing in the rules to say you can't, the perception would be to be careful that if you're competing, you're not arranging the judges. Right, let's see. We got why would judges can protest under originality. So if they think that they've seen the speech on YouTube, like I've said, and we've had that, then they can compete. A speech can give quoted content, but it has to be under 20% from memory, and then you have to say who it's from. If you say it's from, but it's more than 20%, a judge has the right to protest. So if I got a great, really funny YouTube video and delivered that as my speech, that's clearly not my content. A judge can raise a protest under originality. What do we mean by the organising person? So the contest chair doesn't have to be the person organising the event. Anybody could be organising the contest. It could be the contest chair who's organising it. It could be another member doing it as part of one of their CL projects. Anybody could be organising the contest, make sure the roles are filled, make sure the paperwork's printed. It doesn't have to be the contest chair. The contest chair is just one of the functionaries. It could be them. It could be a ballot counter in your club who's also organising it. It could just be a normal member. So it could be anybody at all. What's we got? Can we print in the office, or does it have to be high quality print? No. Printing can be normal office printing. It doesn't have to be high quality printing at all. It's nice if you can get certificates done on a bit better paper, but absolutely right. Normal, was it 100 GSM, or they call it printed paper, 80 normal office printed paper is absolutely fine. Just quickly scroll to the bottom to make sure I haven't missed any of your questions. Forms, I'm going to show you where to get all those forms. So of all these questions, normally say one person should be responsible for organising and collating, overseeing the contest, make sure all the printing is done, all the roles are filled in the club. I think that's all the questions covered. If I haven't said it, how would a judge know that there are some well-known speeches that people actually copy? So judge may by luck have seen it, and that's generally where it's come up. It's they choose a well-known one. Judge protested one of the contests I was a chief judge because the speaker gave a huge percentage happened to come from a Charles Dickens novel. I can't remember which one it was. So you know the one with the ghost to present, ghost past, and which I can't remember which that one is. The one they will show at Christmas. That one, he gave a huge chunk of that, and it was well over 20%, and he never said it was Charles Dickens. So that would be grounds, something as well known as that. Somebody else protested once because it was a whole series of children's stories that were linked together. So they were linked, and she had a twist on them, but the protest on the basis that none of them were hers, and no credit was given. And even, to be honest, so much is the whole thing was that, even if the credit had been given, it wouldn't have made any difference in that case. So that's why judges can protest over that, and indeed contestants as well, over originality. If it was timing, they'd obviously be disqualified as well. Are there any other questions? I think that is it on the question side. So here you can go for resources. That is the link you can go to. Christmas Carol. Thank you. Christmas Carol. I couldn't remember it. Please go there. That's where you can go for the resources. You go there. There's a link to where you can download that evaluation sheet, which we must have ready for the evaluation contest, all the contestants. Enough copies that they can have multiple if they want to. It's not one, as many. You've got a link to the briefing for the contest chair and for the chief judge as well. So all the information is there. You've got my email address as well. If anything comes up, just message me. I will be happy to help as well. Thank you, Jika. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that. Any other questions, my friends, before we go about our rest of our evening, morning or day, depending where you are? You're very welcome, Gosha. Thank you. Lovely to have you with us. Thank you, Adam. Thank you. Thank you all guys for giving up your time. I'm sure if you take this, act on this, this is going to make such a difference to the success you now have in all your contests. It's like anything. I think we can all take it, but we obviously now need to go and action it and put it all together. And this is what will make a difference. If you're not sure of anything, please put it in the rules. Put it in the rules. So check the rule book, I should say. Everything is in there. Everything is in there. Guys, thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words of gratitude as well. I really appreciate that. Thank you as well for giving up your time to come to make your clubs more successful. If you're in District 91, I will look forward to seeing you around at some of our many club, area, division, and indeed district contests over the coming season. And if you're not out of District 91, hopefully we'll have a pleasure of meeting sometime soon. Until we do, thank you very much again for giving up your time and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye for now.